praying to and God, I hope I don't need. Oh, the crowd is in my ears, ice in the veins, hidden fears. Open that gate and watch it come alive. Tell me right, cowboy ride. Tell me right, cowboy ride. Time is slow, the heart grows still. Listen, battle of the will. You got to look way down.
Okay, fake drink. We're going to do a little toast here, and I think there was a sign down there on the, they were scared I wouldn't remember it, but anyways, health, long life, happiness, and love. And this is to everybody that's here. We really appreciate y'all. I want to tell you a little bit, you know, God has blessed us all of our lives here and just blessed us with good friends, good family, everything that happens around here. And we just appreciate God and appreciate what Jesus has done for us. We need to remember that as we go through and look around at the things that are here, our family and friends. Think about the ones that have passed on and done so much. Mr. Ed Sarden, I know he passed on at a young age. I don't know how the family life was up there, but I just remember him being a hard worker and teaching me how to work hard. And I really appreciate that. There were a lot of other people involved in that too. There's an Explorer Scout sitting over here, Slick Stone, involved in some of that. I'm not going to tell you what he taught me because that might get him in trouble. But anyways, we've just had a lot of fun over the years here, and y'all have all been a part of that, and your children are a part of it now. And really what it is you're all family. You're just like us. You're all part of this family. We appreciate it. We love you, and we're glad all of you are here.
Y'all, let's have a blessing, please. Let's bow our heads. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for this family and all the friends are able to gather together. Lord, we thank you for the safe travel. And Lord, we thank you for the country you let us live in where we have the freedom. And we thank you for our military, and we thank you for our leaders. And Lord, we just can't thank you enough. But now, Lord, I want to thank you for this food and the hands that help prepare it. And Lord, please bless this food and help it to nourish, strengthen our bodies and our bodies is our service. And Lord, help us return home safely. And Lord, help us realize without you, none of this would be possible. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, folks, you can't eat yet. You got to listen to me. All right, I have put together one of my very famous scavenger hunts. This is the very first Wrayswood Ramblin scavenger hunt. So I'm looking for a whole bunch of pictures of stuff. You're going to have to solve puzzles. You're going to figure out where things are in the house or on the property and take a picture of it. I want to see the best picture. I got a prize for the best picture. You got all night to do it. Don't rush. Don't run through the house. Don't tear things up. but find stuff. Now, what are the things I'm looking for? I'm going to give you a hint right now, okay? So, one of the things I'm looking for is... Oh, come on. I can do this. All right. Take a picture of the oldest person here. That would be a good picture, right? Take a picture of the youngest person here. Oh, you're looking at me. You're pointing over there. Take a picture that's someone has been here for the first time, and then maybe take a picture of somebody that grew up in this house. Now, I'm thinking to step it up a notch, maybe if you take a picture with all four of those in the same picture, that might win. Now, I've just given you that idea, so that's not going to win. But I want to see that picture. So I've got scavenger hunts over here. I've got pens, pencils. Bring your camera. Make sure you post all those pictures that you take because they're going to be fun. You're going to have to meet new people. You're going to have to find stuff, ask questions of people. And I want to see all the pictures. The best ones got a prize. Maybe the best two have a prize. And, you know, we'll see you. Okay, I've got somebody. Well, come find me and let me look at the picture, and then I will, you know, I will decide at that time. So, Without further ado, let's eat.
We have now the famous Slick Stone with us to talk to you just a minute. Tell us a story, Slick.
All right, while you're in line to get your dinner, I've got a couple of just small, short stories to tell you about Dick Curtis. Growing up and working here at the farm, worked here from about 5 years in like 1959, 60, 61, 62, 63. And 63, in March of 63, I received a call here at this house, and I was working with Dick and Miss Cindy to go to my first job at Callaway Gardens. So I was working here when I got that call. So I'll tell a couple of stories. One that has followed me through my career, and if you of starting a career, this is a good story for you to learn from. Dick had sent me out to the pasture just on the other side of the little store on the end of the driveway. It was in the morning to put out some fertilizer or cut hay, I can't remember what it was. And about halfway through, this huge black cloud was coming up out of the west, and it was like it was going to be the worst thunderstorm you've ever seen. Well, I just picked up and came toward the house. Well, Dick saw me coming down the driveway, and he met me out here about where that big tree used to be. He says, Slick, said, did you finish up? I said, no, sir, Dick, that big cloud's coming. I said, it's going to rain like son of a gun. Well, in his own inimitable way of saying things, and I won't say exactly the way he said it, he said, Slick, get your ass back out there, and don't you ever come back to the barn until the job is finished. Now, take that through your career, and I'm seeing at least Toombs Lewis saying, I learned that same lesson too. Don't ever go home until the job is finished. Now, that's the Dick Curtis saying. Another one, we had Dick and Miss Cindy and all the family, Cindy Ann and Ricky and all of them, they took off one summer for a month to the Teal Bar Dude Ranch in Montana. They left in charge the farm in my care. We had, any of you remember Jack Baines? You remember who Jack Baines was? Jack Baines and I, we were here living on the quarters, and we had I call her, she was our maid, and cook was Ruby. And then Jess was I say, what do we call him now? African-American gentleman that was part of the hands that helped us here. Well, anyhow, Dick took me down to this barn where the freezer was. It had a big walk-in freezer, and one side was the good stuff. The other side was the stuff that we were supposed to eat while they were gone for that 4 weeks. Well, when I took Ruby and I said, Ruby, be sure you get all of the stuff that we're supposed to eat from this side. Don't get anything from this side. Well, Ruby obviously got a little confused. Each morning I'm having lamb chops. Each evening I'm having rack of lamb, and I'm thinking, man, this is some good stuff that we're eating. Well, they get back from the 4-week trip out in Montana, and Dick said, well, I guess I didn't explain that like I should have. And we'd eaten all the good stuff out of the freezer while they were gone. The other final story I'm going to tell, and then I'm going to leave you and let you enjoy your dinner. That same summer when they were gone to Montana, Dick gave us a bunch of fences that we had to put up down in along the river and all that stuff, and it was in some pretty thick woods and underbrush. Well, Jack Baines discovered that we could sell snakes to the botany department over at the University of Georgia. They would give us $5 for a non-poisonous snake and $10 for a poisonous snake. Well, here we are, we're putting these fences up and all this stuff, and every 10, 15, 20 yards you go, and there's a snake. I mean, he's going snake. Well, here we go. We're chasing more snakes than we're putting up fences. But and usually on Friday morning, I'd send Jack to the University of Georgia, and he'd come back with a big fistful of money, having sold all the snakes. So that's my snake story. That's my whatever stories. And Cindy Ann, you and Ricky, Beth, Lucy, Tom, I think I've covered all of you. You all are family and always will be. Your mother and father was like mother and daddy to me. So love you guys. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name's John Calloway. I spent a summer out here one summer in, I can't remember what year it was, 66 or 67. And I think an interesting point I wanted to make about that summer I spent out here. You know, approximately 90 days, and I was paid $1 a day. So I worked the whole summer for $90, and that was room and board. But little did I know, years later, my father told me, he said, "John, you don't understand. I paid the $90. So Daddy wanted just to get me out of Greensboro and get me out here with this wonderful family. And Lamar and Reed and all of us. Reed had already been out here for years, and I just can't tell you enough good things about the Curtis family. They're a wonderful family. I did want to mention a story that I'm not like Pep Stone. I can't remember everything, but I wanted to remember or tell you a story about one day we were cutting in a field at the end of this road, small hay field there, and Mr. Pete Yearwood was driving the tractor. And of course we had the tractor and then the baler, and then tied to the baler was a hay wagon behind it. And Reed and I think all of us were there, Reed and Billy and all of us. And somehow I got knocked down and the hay wagon ran over my leg. So anyway, they took me to the hospital, Minnie G. Boswell, and x-rayed it and all that stuff. I think what I was trying to do is get out of work. So, but that actually happened. I wish Pete was still living, because I'm sure he would have remembered that. And but as I sit here tonight, I'm sure some other stories will come to me, and I'd like to maybe come back up if I think of something else that you might enjoy. But again, this was quite a this experience out here with the Curtis family was a wonderful experience for me, because it was at a pivotal time in my life, and it taught, I learned a lot of great solid virtues here working with this family, and that carried me for many, many years to come. But I hope to come back maybe later with some other stories. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eddie Sarn. I'm the son of Eddie Sarn Sr. We moved here in 1949. My father was a sharecropper, and we lived up at the end of the road in the big white house. Not the one that's there now, the one before. And we planted cotton, and a job that I didn't like, but I had to do it. So I think I was around 10 years old then, and we stopped sharecropping and started working daily on the farm. So after my father passed at an early age, 41 years old, in 1954, February the 7th. So after that, then I had to start working every day in order to support my family. So after a while, my intention were to finish school, but by me having a mother and 4 sisters, I had to make sure that they have a place to live and food. So I worked night and day in order to support them. And out of the other guys that worked on the farm, they always had something to do on weekends, which the sheep needed to be herded. So I was the one selected to go and camp out with the sheep. So Curtis built a wagon, a covered wagon, like you see on wagon train. So it had a bed. One side was a cabinet full of food. Had a rifle for the foxes at night when they come out to attack the sheep. And your food, you would dig out a trench on a terrace, get close to a terrace, dig out a trench and put your rack over it and cook your food. So when you get ready to bed down, you would go out and put a few grains out on the ground, and all the sheep were coming to it. So they would lay down, bed down around the wagon. So if a fox come up or a dog, they would start running, and the hoof would wake you up. So he had this horse named Duke. So I was over on 15 Highway, and I woke up that morning, Duke was gone. So I was afraid to tell him that I had lost his horse. So when he came around that morning, and I finally told him that the horse had left, but it was a week later, the horse came back here. So then he decided that he wanted to transfer the sheep from here to Madison over at McIntyre, Senator McIntyre's farm. So all the other guys chickened out, so I volunteered to herd the sheep. So we left here, went to Double Bridge Road, camped out there for a week, and we left there and went to over to Farmington Road at the pork plant and stayed there for a week. We left there, and I forget the name of the farm on 278, but after you go past the river, it's a big farm over on the left-hand side, and we stayed there for 2 weeks. And after that 2 weeks camping, we went down through Madison on over to McIntyre's farm, and every little vacant lot or vacant field that nobody was living on or homesteading, we camped out at night until we got to this McIntyre's farm. And then a week after we got there, then they had the rodeo. So we was transferring cattle and horses from here to McIntyre's farm, and that during that week of the rodeo, I was running through the barn because one of the cows, it was a large barn sitting there right down where the cows are. And one of them pushed the gate open and started running to the barn. So he asked me to run and stop the cow. So I was ran through that shed there, stuck a pitchfork in my feet. So I worked the rest of the day. That was about 12. So I worked all that afternoon, and the next morning I worked. So we walked home to lunch. And on the way back, I couldn't walk any further, so I crawled from halfway that hill to here. So he put me on the fender of his truck, and I had to hang on for dear life from here to Madison to the doctor. And when I got to the doctor, he told me that my leg had sit-up blood poison. So I sit there and waited until he delivered the cow to McIntyre's farm, and then he came back and picked me up. So after that, I was off for a week. So after that week, then I got back in full swing of working, and I started to flying at night from 7 o'clock to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then back at 7 in the morning and work till 7 that evening, and then go back and work at night. So I was supposed to go on a trip to St. Louis when he delivered a load of, he always carried a load of hogs and bring back a load of sheep. So this other guy, L.B. Allen, he talked to me into letting him go. So I had to stay, cut silo, and plow. So I was a little upset about it, but there was nothing I could do. So after that, I started back to school. When I started back to school, he got upset about that, and we had to move on. But during that time, I learned how to be a man, because I think I was coming up on my 14th birthday when my father passed. So after that, I learned how to work and survive and take care of my family. And after we moved, well, I'm gonna tell you about the ghost first. A little bit more about the ghost. Now, in the White House, up at the end of the road, my father passed in 54, February. March, we were sitting in the dining room and we were playing cards, and he didn't want us to play cards. So it started raining like it did today and knocked the lights out. So we were gonna play cards anyway, so we had a kerosene lamp. So we lit the lamp and we was playing cards. So when we burned all the kerosene out of the lamp, they had a bottle called a flambeau, put a rag in it and fill it with kerosene, and you light it and you still had light. So we was sitting out playing. My two sisters over there, they started screaming, and I had my back to the kitchen and dining room. So when I turned around, this big round light was up at the ceiling, and it was bouncing, coming towards me. And when I finally got them off of me, when it got to my bed, it came through the door, the foot of my bed, and then it turned and got lower and just went like it went through the wall. It disappeared. So later, Curtis would give my dad his truck to take everybody to Madison to buy their groceries. So 8 o'clock, we had to be back. We drove up in the yard, it was 2 big red lights up under the house. And we got out of the truck. One of the lights came out, bouncing, went up one side of the big oak tree, come down the other side, and bounced on down across the pasture. But we never could figure out where they were. And whenever it rained, the back hall door on the house, with a long hall, two rooms on one side, 4 on the other side. So we would lock the door, put a latch across it. The next morning, the door would be open. So my father said, well, we'll put the barrel of flour. They had 55 drums full of flour, cooking flour. So we put it up against the door. The next morning, the drum will be out in the middle of the floor and the door will be wide open. So we had to leave. There was too many of us there, so we had to go. So, you know, as I lived here, I learned how to work, I became a man, and I learned how to support my family. And I'm proud that I had that job. He gave me an opportunity to become a man. Thanks.
All right, let me get your attention. Good Lord, there's a good light here anyway. Maybe I can work on my tan. This is a hat that I wore when I was working out here. It wasn't but about 50 years ago, I guess. So this is my wintertime hat. In the summertime, we had a straw hat, but there's a hole in it that finally wore in there. I told my kids that that's where I was shot at. You know, shot at and missed. Sort of. But anyway, Lucy wanted to tell a story about the Charolais cows and trying to get a Charolais calf tagged out here. And it was me and Miss Curtis. We call her Boom Boom, or BB. We had me and Miss Curtis and Leo, the guy that worked out here, in the pickup truck. And so we had a Charolais calf that we had to tag. So we went and caught the calf. And of course, the mother weighs about 10,000 pounds, and she's mean, and like Charolais are. And I've always said that I don't think Charolais eat grass. I think they eat meat. So we all got in the truck and went over and caught this calf, and the cow just started raising sand. We couldn't get in the back of the truck because the cow was trying to get in the back of the truck. So all 3 of us in the calf, Miss Curtis was right in the middle holding the calf. And so the Charolais cow came over and stuck her head in the window of the truck trying to get in the truck. So we just all got out and left the calf, and we let the Charolais drive off in the truck. And I was going to tell a story here about Elizabeth that used to work here, bless her heart. And Elizabeth, we'd go to pick her up every morning and bring her here to work with the Curtises. And we'd take her home at night. But what we would do, when we went to pick her up, I picked up Bobby Curtis. Bobby Curtis happened to be here, and Bobby had grown a beard. And so I didn't know who he was for a while, but he had a beard, and so it's time to go pick up Elizabeth. So I told Bobby we're going to play a little trick on Elizabeth. So Bobby got in the back seat and pulled his hat down over his eyes, and you couldn't really see anything but his beard, and he was in the back seat, and I went up and picked up Elizabeth, and she got in the front seat, and she looked back and said, because Bobby just sat back there with his head down, she said, "Who is that?" And I said, "I don't really know who it was. He was out here hitchhiking on the road." So I just picked him up, and he's just riding with us in the back seat, and Bobby kind of go, oh, like that, you know, and Elizabeth kind of got quiet, and then he got his hand and he kind of patted her on the shoulder, you know, and she said, and I'll quote this, "If you do that again, I'll bust your chops." And one other story about Elizabeth's husband, Book, wanted to drive, and he never had a car. And he wanted to drive, and finally got him a car, and he could drive. But he was getting on in age, too, and so was his car. But he was so proud of it, you'd hear him coming down the road because he wouldn't drive over 35 miles an hour. And so a line of cars, about 40 cars, would be behind him, blowing the horns, trying to pass him, trying to get him to move. And if you saw him, he's just happy as he could be, just putting along at 35 miles an hour. And I was going, just a point of interest here, a cousin of mine from way back in the years was Dr. Thomas Pullein, and he married one of the Ray sisters, the Ray sister Harriet. And so he owned the mill at Skull Shoals. And so that's a whole history in itself. But anyhow, Thomas Pullein married Harriet Ray of Wrayswood, and he was down there and Wrayswood was up here. So it kind of, when I come here, I'm actually on land that at one point in time one of my cousins happened to live here. So the last thing I'm going to go through here, I could tell about Tommy and the deer stand, but I don't think I'll go into that. But I've got something that I have here that I got down at the end of this driveway where June and Ruby lived in a house down there. There's an oak tree about big as this table down there, and it finally rotted and fell over. And so we were cutting it up. This is about 1975, and we were cutting the tree up, and so I found this right here. And this is the point you go ooh and ah, because this is great. My chainsaw just missed a mule shoe that was hung up in that tree. I don't know how long ago, but you can see that. And on the back, you can see the nails coming out of the mule shoe. And you can see how close we came with the chainsaw, that if I'd have hit that mule shoe, it'd have really wrecked my chainsaw. But anyhow, I brought this to go into the Wrayswood home with the stuff they've got here that they're collecting that came from the farm. And this is from the old oak tree out of the end of the driveway that used to be out there. There was a house out there too, but that was gone. This is where we cut it up, and that's the mule shoe. So I'm going to leave this with the family here, and y'all enjoy it. If you think I look pretty handsome, I'll just leave this hat on. I think I look pretty handsome.
It works on you. It works on you. Thank you, Timmy, for bringing that memento back out here. We appreciate that.
There you go. I'm Grady Torrance. I'm one of the first of the college students that worked out here at Wrayswood. That was back in 1953. A friend of mine named Bill Upton and myself came out here. We needed summer jobs, and one of the professors at the University of Georgia told us about these people out in Greene County. They got a big sheep operation out there, and they need help in the summer with the sheep. So one Saturday, Bill and I drove out here and asked Mr. Curtis about a job, and blame if he didn't hire us. Now, that was quite an experience. Across the road from the old store up here at the end of the driveway, right across that road, was a gin house. And there was a seed house here, a cotton seed house next to it. And they had made a couple of rooms that you put beds in, and they had a bathroom and had a little bit of cooking facilities and a refrigerator. Now, the refrigerator was one of these old ones that had a little round condenser on top of it. Y'all might have seen those in antique shows or something. But that's what we had living. Bill and I did our own cooking, lived up a housekeeping and cooking. And on occasion, Cynthia would ask us down to have a meal with the family, and that was a real treat. But every morning we'd show up about 5 o'clock here at the house, and Dick and his brother Tom, who was here with him at that time, they'd be laying out the day's operation, what work we're doing. And Bill and I'd show up and have a cup of coffee with them, and then we'd go out for the day's work. And the old gin is not there anymore because during that summer, I tore that sucker down. I took it down. But Dick was a very thrifty individual, and he wanted to save all that lumber in it. And there must have been 10,000 nails in that thing, and I had to extract the nails in order to keep them. And that wasn't so bad, except some of the beams and all was nailed from both ends, top and bottom. Well, it's hard to pry them apart when they're nailed from both sides. But we got it done, and he stored the lumber in the old big barn that was down here. And I don't know what he ever did with that lumber, but he had plenty of lumber, whatever he wanted to do. Lucy asked me if I'd tell some stories. Most of my good stories I had told in years past here. A couple of interesting little things, though, and to sort of illustrate the kind of the nature of where we are here. I came one Christmas for 2 weeks and worked during the lambing season. That was the Christmas of 1953. And I know y'all all remember how cold it was that year. But they had the ewes out in the pasture down here, and that's where they would drop the lambs. The old big barn had converted, put a bunch of little stalls inside, little temporary partitions to stall them off, and had heat lamps. And the trick was to go about every 2 to 3 hours, go out with the flashlight and lantern and walk through the pen, the paddock there, and pick up any lambs that had been born and take them inside to the heat lamp. Now the old ewes, you pick up that lamb and she'd follow you. So we'd move them in there and put them under the heat lamp. And we have to do that and had to get up several times during the night and go out and check them. Otherwise, those lambs would freeze to death. Now, also, it had another barn, had about 3 or 4 farrowing pens. They'd bring the old sow in for her to have the pigs, and had a heat lamp, had a little partition so the pigs could get under there to the heat lamp. The old sow couldn't lay on them and smash them. So we'd also, after we'd got the lambs checked, we'd go by and check the farrowing pens. One night we went in there and we were checking, and Dick said, come here. So we went over there, and inside that pen, under that heat lamp, there's about 6 or 7, 8 little pigs all piled up in a pile there under that heat lamp. There were 2 little baby raccoons piled up there right in amongst those pigs, enjoying that heat lamp. And so we looked at them and marveled for a little bit, and then we left them alone, let them enjoy that heat lamp. But I thought that was pretty neat. And about the only thing else that I can think of right now, I don't think I've told this before, but during that time, that Christmas, had a good time. Rick and Cindy Ann and Billy. Well, Lucy hadn't been born yet, but I stayed with them. I didn't live in the seed house then. I came that Christmas, those 2 weeks, I stayed in the big house with the family. And at night, there was a big fire in the, what was den at that time, and with popcorn. They had one of these long handle little baskets, you know, with a lid on it with popcorn and shake it. And I would tell them Uncle Remus stories. And and Cindy Ann couldn't say Grady, so I was Uncle Gravy. I've been Uncle Gravy ever since. But one thing I remember, one evening there, Ricky, and I don't know if it was a worm or a bug or what he had, but he was chasing Cindy Ann through the house, and she was running around typical female. Ah, ah, ah. Cynthia said, "Cindy Ann, for Pete's sake, be quiet." I remember Dick said, "Oh, Cindy, she's just a little girl practicing to be a woman."
I couldn't stand it. I got to tell the story on Tommy when he went deer hunting. Oh gosh, I don't know how old he was, but he's old enough to know better. Anyhow, we were hunting deer right over here, so I took Tommy in the truck and dropped him off at this deer stand that's way up in the tree. And so I said, "I'll come back and get you 2 hours or whatever it was." So anyhow, Tommy's up in there, and I didn't hear any shooting, so I knew Tommy was still there. So I went back to get him, and I really couldn't see him. And so I said, "Tommy, it's time to come on down." And he said, "Okay." So about that time, I heard all of his bullets fall out and hit the floor. And then I was sitting there waiting, and then about that time, here comes his flashlight out. He dropped his flashlight down. And so I was afraid that Tommy was going to be the next thing to come down. But he made it down, didn't trip to the bottom step, then he tripped. So the gun, I forgot the gun. He dropped the gun down. The bullets dropped, the flashlight dropped, the gun stuck up in the ground. And then here comes Tommy. Spirit in the ground. I had forgotten about the gun. I was so excited about the story here. But there was one other story I might have told before, but when you get my age, telling it twice ain't so bad. But the time that I was working out here, and we had sows over here that had little piglets, and there was another little boy that worked out here. His name was Joseph. And so Dick was standing there, and he said, "Y'all go in there and get those piglets and get them out of there." So Joseph and I'd go in and grab one and run like crazy to the fence because the sow was getting ready to tear us up. And we'd hit the fence and jump on over and throw the little piglet over the fence, and Dick would catch it. So anyhow, I was looking, and Dick was standing there with his hands. He was on the safe side of the fence. And so I was looking, and Joseph grabbed a little piglet by the leg, and about that time, that sow came barreling at him about 90 miles an hour, and he's big as it could be, she was. And Joseph took that little piglet and threw him across the fence, threw him up in the air, and I was on the other side, and I watched Dick as the piglet goes like that. And I watched Dick when he looked back around. Here comes Joseph. And Dick called Joseph. Joseph hit him right in the chest, and both of them went to the ground. But anyhow, that's one of the stories that you get when you work out here and is have a good time. So I'll turn it over to somebody here.
Y'all, I feel like the young buck. All them suckers talking about back in the 50s and all this, so I'm the young chick in the crowd. Mine was back in the 80s. But anyway, I moved back here, my wife and I did. Toomey and Cindy Ann was here, but they moved. So Miss Curtis had a guy named Leo, and a lot of you guys remember Leo, and I'm not saying nothing, but if y'all go up here and take a right, you see the tire operation up there. Well, that was Leo's and them's operation. But anyway, Leo worked for Miss Curtis. My wife and I come back, and we built the horse barn and put a double wide. Well, we lived with Miss Curtis for 1 year. There's a lot of ghost stories about this house. Cindy Ann can tell some verified. So when we moved back and I was living with Miss Curtis, I told her, I said, if you want to get rid of your son-in-law, you just scare him one time. I said, I promise you I'll be gone. But she of course, if y'all knew Miss Curtis, she tolerated a lot. As good a woman you'd ever want to meet. But anyway, Leo worked for Miss Curtis, and I was up there on the hill training horses, Mama, my wife and I. Well, anytime he needed any help, he'd come up there and get me. And back then, they had some cows that really loved their calves. And they would get you, you know, if you grabbed that calf. Well, Leo come got me one day. He said, I've got trouble. I said, well, come on, hop in my truck. And I had a Chevrolet truck, didn't have a tailgate on it, didn't pay no attention. But anybody that knows anything about a cow and a calf and a dog don't mix. So I wasn't paying no attention, got in the truck, Leo got in with me, and Leo was driving. So I grabbed the calf and I threw him in the back of the truck. And I was going to tag him and band him and all. Well, that cow come and jumped in the middle of that truck with me. Of course, I went like a covey of quail out of it. And I looked, and there was my doggone dog. I didn't even know it was with me. Well, anyway, that cow hit the back glass, busted the back glass out of the truck. And, of course, here come the dog following me, and I was telling that dog, get away from me, dog. I don't want you near me. But anyway, we had to give up on that calf for a little while, and then finally, we grabbed him again, threw him in the truck, and Leo kept driving. And I was sitting back there tagging and all. And then when we got through, we kicked the calf out, you know, when we made it okay. And I like to tell one more on Leo. Leo would cut, rake, fluff the hay, but he said, I don't know how to run no baler. Well, I thought I was being smart because I knew how. But I also got to thinking I was the last man in the field. You know, he doesn't rake that hay. He'd been home 2 hours long before I was, so he was smarter than I was, honestly. But Miss Curtis, Leo finally quit. And I guess the last 6 years of Miss Curtis's life, I worked for her. We trained a lot of, before I went to work for her, my wife and I, we trained a lot of thoroughbred horses, went to the track, fooled with a lot of people that supposed to have a lot of money. But a lot of times I was begging for that lot of money. So Miss Curtis decided, when Leo decided to quit, he'd been working for her like 18 years. And she asked me to go to work for her, and so I did. And one of the best bosses I ever had in my life for her last 6 years, I was blessed to be able to be here with her. But we'd have trouble like that. She always drove the truck. I was the monkey down there grabbing the calf, throwing it in. But she'd drive it around, and we'd get it tagged and put it back out. But that's basically the story I want to tell. But it was good memories. I had a lot of good bosses. But she's the only one that if you tore up something, are you okay? That was just the way she was. Making sure you was okay. Most of the rest of them, doggone, you tear up an animal barefooted, you know, not worried about you. But that was just kind of the way the person she was. And I was blessed to be able to have 6 years to work with her. And I also was blessed to be in this family. Thank y'all.